Alright guys, due to the fan noise, when I turned on the secondary fan, it just got way out of control. I didn't realize how bad it was until I started to listen to the video here. So I'm going to briefly give you an idea of what's going on real quick, because I did decide to turn one of the fans off halfway through this thing, which helped. But what I have here is we have two units. We have the black one that's in my hand, and mounted with Velcro behind that, you'll see a blue box. That little blue box is a voice changer. It's a voice modifier. It'll make you go from Darth Vader to Twinkle Toes, whatever. Now they have a set of wires coming out of the main board that were tied in to the other side of the board, which was somewhere between the two ends. The component someplace was bad. So the easiest thing was to do was to just cut it off off the board and wire it in direct with an on-off switch. And that's what we're doing here. Problem being is there's a wire of three. There's three wires twisted together. A black, which is the ground, a blue, which is power, and a red, which is power. So the two powers feed the black box that I had in my hand and the blue box, which is there. They were sharing the same ground on the board. So everything seemed to be okay. I hook up the red wire to the black box after I had made a blank 9-volt battery to put in place with permanent wire soldered to it. This way they didn't have to keep trying to get in there to change the battery. It's got constant power continuously. That's why I needed the switch. So I decided that I was going to switch the ground lead. This way, if the switch was to fall, we really didn't have to worry about any power lines breaking off the switch and shorting out. The ground is just going to fall against the case, and it's just going to be a ground. So at that point, that's what I started to do. And I had it all hooked up, and I found out that the switch wasn't working. So I said, well, that doesn't sound right, but it could be a bad switch. So I put a meter across it, and it was showing as a bad switch. And it just wasn't doing anything. So I decided at that point to take the switch off and just do it with two wires, touching them back and forth, and see what I can do. Meanwhile, this is coming on, coming off, wires are moving, fuses are in and out. I blew one fuse, but that's not a big deal. So, after looking through all this, I started to notice that the blue box is still grounded with that black wire that both boxes are grounded to. So even if I disconnected the switch as I did, the black box was still being grounded through the blue box, through the audio adapter that goes from one side to the other, from one box to the other. So that's why the switch wasn't working, because the switch that I had on the red and black wire right down there, well, one of them is red, one is black, as you can see. The black one goes to the switch, and I flip the switch off, but it's still connected through that big round phono cable coming out of the blue box. So it was still grounded, so the switch wasn't working. That was one of the problems. So the thing was, it took me a good 20 minutes to a half an hour, maybe even more, to kind of figure all this out and trace everything through, because it's not easy when you start tracing things, because you don't know where the hell the problem is, and if it's one problem or if it's two, because if it's two, you don't know, which one is which until you accidentally or hopefully find both. Now I get it all done, and I finally got everything hooked up there, and then again, you'll see it sooner or later on the red wire that's coming up from where you're not seeing. there's actually an inline fuse. It's a black case inline fuse. And as I'm checking things, I noticed that the wire wasn't even going into that fuse. The wire had broken off the inline fuse holder from inside. Now, that could have happened because of what I was doing, moving all these wires around. But I'm thinking it was probably broke off to start with, and it was just stuck up in there. Because these are stranded wire. They're not solid. Solid wire, I can say, okay. Stranded wire, yeah, it takes a little bit of doing to break it off like that. So at that point, I had to fix that as well. And you'll see it in parts of these videos someplace. But at this point, we finally got this figured out and got it working. Now, I had it working prior, and there's a video that's going to be before this one to where I actually was using it and it was talking, but everything was just twisted together. Nothing was hooked up permanently, and there was no switch in line because I had to take that switch box, that switch panel thing there, and cut out the squares for the switches using a Dremel tool. I don't know if I did a video on that or not, so I couldn't tell you. I don't know when the camera's on or when it's off, if it's running, if it's not running. If it's not plugged in, the battery goes dead. I couldn't tell you if the battery's dead or not, so I don't know. But that's basically what we're doing. See, right now I'm just twisting things together just to get an idea where and what is the problem. And this is when I started to find out that if you come down to the lower right to where you can't see, that's where the other ground wire went, which is the black ground wire to the right, the little skinny one that you see going down. That's where it goes. That's the one that I had to disconnect. As soon as I disconnected that one, the one I just shook, and tied it in to the other side of the switch, it all worked fine, no problems. And then I was able to start doing some work on the body work. And that's where we're at now, to a point to where I started doing some sanding and a little bit more on that. And while I was waiting for that to dry, because again I had to do some wet sanding, some wiping, some skimming with some Bondo and some more sanding, I decided to start working on the top part of this thing, which has the lights and the sirens and the bells and the whistles and the eyes and everything else. So that's what I kind of started to work on from there, and that does have sounds, so you'll kind of see what I was doing, because that also turned into being a nightmare. You know, every little thing, you know, it's like, you know, here it is, what's the problem? That's this one, that should go to ground. This one should not. Wait a minute. Okay, that one should be on ground. It is. Okay. This one should not be going to ground. And this one should not be going to ground unless it's grounding through here. Ah, didn't think of that. Let's unplug this for a minute. Yeah, it's a possibility because this is grounded. Okay, so that's that one. Let's try this one. Still grounded. Why is that? Put this back in. I think it went to this one. If not, I'll plug it into the other one. But if this is a ground, and this goes to here. Okay, so that's good. That's a ground going to there. This ground that's the problem. That should not be going to ground. That's an independent case. So this is all by it lonesome. This should not have any ground on it right now. And if it does, I don't know where it's coming from. I mean, I don't know exactly how this thing's put together, but okay, so we're not connected here. Now let's hook this up, put the fuse back in, just in case that might be a problem, because remember, there was a few blown parts in here. So anything's a possibility. And if that's the case, I don't want to use this power. Okay, now let's go back to this piece. This should not be grounding off to that. That's the case. That means that this other piece is flopping around here someplace. This piece and if this is the ground, that could be part of the problem. It is, okay. So we're going to leave this one alone for a minute. I want to try something. Let me get my jumper. Didn't I bring some jumpers out here? I thought I did. We are going to attach this to this, which is coming out of that module. I'm going to try to get in there anyway. Okay. And then we're going to take this side and attach it to this. Put this 5 in there, and now that's on. Okay. Small, but it is. This has got power on it right now. Okay. Let's pull that fuse back out. Pop this back in. Now let's take this piece. Goes to the unit, and that's going to go on here. Okay, I'm going to take this and put it on here. now, both off. Okay. I'll take this and put it there. So if I take this and switch it on, it doesn't want to work. Okay, this is a bad switch. I was hoping that it wasn't, but it seems to be. Let's try this one. This does not want to switch on or off. What is, oh wait a minute. It's not going to switch on and off because I took the fuse out of it. Hello. I mean, when you start on these things, they get you going crazy. You see, this is not doing it, and this should be a ground. I'm switching grounds.